Good afternoon and welcome to another segment of Off the Cuff with Deb. I'm here located at the Staged Homes Real Estate Office where I'm the broker owner at 335 Main Street in Vista, where we offer free professional home staging for all our sellers. Staging does maximize your equity, so if you'd like more information about our free staging, please make sure to message me or check out our before and after photos at our website at www.stagedhomesrealestate.com. Today I want to talk about the 4 mistakes in estate planning. Unfortunately, over the course of just the last 30 days, I have had numerous family members, clients, past clients come to me with a lot of estate questions, and unfortunately for all the wrong reasons, because a lot of mistakes were made in the planning process. So for example, mistake number 1 is die intestate. What does that big word mean? It basically just means dying without a plan. And if you don't have a plan, the state of California is going to come in with a plan for you. And that plan is going to be through probate. The problem with probate is that probate can be very expensive, as much as 5% of the estate. So think about it. If you've got $1 million estate, value of real estate and other assets, then that means the probate could cost $50,000. The inheritance you intended on leaving for your family, for your children, is now getting eaten up in probate. So it's also a very lengthy process in California. I've heard as much as 1.5 to 2 years to settle on a probate. So that's definitely not something that you want to do. If you have any assets at all, especially real estate, we have a lot of clients who own real estate and they are not protected. So I want to just share with you some ways where not only can we help you get into property, but you need to protect the asset for the next generation. Mistake number 2, dying without a will or no trust. If you pass away without a will or a trust, you're just a little better off than dying intestate with no will, because although you get to designate where those funds or assets go to and who's going to receive them, you're still going to end up in probate if you don't have a trust. Ending up in probate under that condition still, once again, can be very costly and can be very time consuming. So some people think, well, gosh, if I have a will, I'm protected. I have a say. I get to say who I want to get what and how and when and where, and that's all good and great. And I think it's important to have a will. However, from my experience and from what I've heard, a will is not the end all. It still lands you in probate because you've got other issues that you have to deal with, especially when it comes to taxes and the IRS. So although we're in a community property state, we address things as community property. The IRS sees things differently. And so there's an awful lot of tax consequences without proper planning. So mistake number 3 is owning real property jointly. Most people here in the state of California, if you're married, are going to take property as a husband and wife as joint tenants, thinking that by taking husband and wife as joint tenants as title when you purchase your property is going to protect your spouse, the surviving spouse, upon your death. And although the surviving spouse would actually get the property, there are still some problems with that. So for example, we think that by adding a family member like a child or significant other, even somebody that maybe you're not married to, a partner you've been with for many years, that this is going to help you to avoid probate. But that's a big problem, because when you put a child member or a significant other on your title, what happens is then that title, that property, whatever asset that you have, now takes on any legal issues that could come about from a child or from somebody else, like a lien or a lawsuit or a settlement could end up going on your title because they are now attached to real property. So you have to be really careful who you just add on to title, and just adding somebody on title does not avoid probate. So I want you to go, I want to talk to you a little bit about the best way that I have heard taking title. And I'm not an expert, and I recommend that you talk to your tax accountant and especially attorney and estate attorney when making your plans, is not taking title as husband and wife as joint tenants, but taking title as community property with the right of survivorship. And the reason for that is going to have to do with taxes and the tax consequences that may or may not happen in a joint tenant situation or in a probate situation. Mistake number 4 Giving property outright to your heirs. A lot of people think, well, hey, while I'm living, why don't I just transfer all of my assets to my children, my partners now, rather than when I pass away and then we have to deal with that through either a trust or through probate. But that actually is not necessarily the best way for you to approach that situation. First of all, transferring all your assets while you're alive is to avoid probate. The problem goes back to the tax issues. And the tax issues, they will take tax basis in the property, and they're going to have to pay capital gains tax. So let me explain that once again. So if you transfer your real estate while you're still alive to your children, let's take, for example, a home that's valued at $1 million. I might have paid $200,000 for that property, for example. But if I transfer it to you while you're alive, then you're going to actually have to pay the capital gains tax if I die on a basis of the $200,000 that I purchased the property for. So now you're looking at an $800,000 gain on that property. If there was a 30% capital gains tax, you're looking at $240,000 on that transaction. So once again, not always the best idea for tax reasons for you to just transfer all those assets to your children while they're still living. You really want to seek the advice of a tax accountant and an estate planner to make sure that when you are building your assets, that you are protecting those assets for the future generation. I have heard the best way to do that is by putting your properties in a trust, avoiding probate, and actually letting through the trust, designating a trustee that will then take over where a probate attorney or a judge doesn't have to. Next week, we're going to talk a little bit more on how to develop a trust, what kinds of things you want to have in a trust. That would include all of your assets. We want to make sure that you protect your assets in the event one or the other passes away, because most people often don't understand or don't know when they're taking title, when they make their purchases, and they certainly don't know how to protect them once they enter into a property. That's probably the most important thing you can do after you close escrow. And we here at Staged Homes Real Estate are here to help you in that process. We're not here just to get you into a home. We're here to teach you and educate you on how to protect those assets for the next generation. So stay tuned for next week so you can hear more about trust and how that process can work to help you in protecting the assets. Thank you so much for joining us here at the Staged Homes Real Estate Office with Off the Cuff Live with Deb.